What's up, people? This is Dio the Enigma. I wanted to bring up something that, quite honestly, needs to be discussed, and I don't see it a lot within the truther community, and more specifically with those aspects of, I guess you would say, oriented towards the Bible or Judaism. Some people talk about the Great Noticing and stuff. With all that, that's actually orchestrated and being allowed. I mean, look at the CEOs of these social media companies. You think that's not being allowed? Goes with Mashiach prophecies. So I think that now more than ever, I would like to discuss something very critical to this whole thing. That the Bible is a henotheistic document. Now, of course, most people are professing a monotheistic, monotheistic doctrine based on the Bible, but these are all due to deliberate, in my belief, translations that are errors, that are incorrect, and a lot of propaganda by the early church fathers, such as Jerome. They have fabricated a mythology over time that is definitely foreign to the text itself in the Hebrew. Elohim is plural gods. I am English to translate into Hebrew is a suffix of for plurality. Angels, which are emissaries or messengers, is malachim. Malach being angel, malachim being angels. And you can use Elohim. There will be those who argue that, well, the grammatics use a singular usage with this part of the Elohim. It's like, yeah, but it can be used and is used for singular usage. But it's like saying, for example, here's like Yotevathe, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, basically. Yahweh is my Elohim. You are saying that Elohim in particular, from the council of Elohim, which is described in such passages even now, with Psalms 82, which also says in 6, 7, funnily enough, Psalms 82, 6, and 7 talks about how they can die. You look at where the Jews sprang from, Israel and Judea kingdoms, they stemmed from Canaan. Canaan, they were also enslaved in Babylon. You have both influences on their culture. And clearly in the Hebrew texts, the Elohim is plural. There's several times where people are debating which Elohim to follow, according to those such as the former Vatican translator, Mauro Biblino. Or at least he was a top Vatican publisher. He worked for him. Translated some of the oldest texts of the Torah. And he advocates that, various things such as the Lucifer quote being Xerxes due to Deutero-Isaiah's development. Pretty interesting guy with the Gods of the Bible book. But of course, you have scholarly opinion that also is with me on this, that this is definitely a document of plurality with their influences from Canaan and Babylon. Right, so Mauro Biblino, why I even brought him up, he explains when he has it translated that every one of these gods that many of the mainstream Christian beliefs call the false gods, they had the dash Elohim with them. That's, of course, Mauro Biblino's what he was saying. Of course, like I was saying, scholarly opinion also talks about the influences on Yahweh's creation and development from those such as like Baal, what most of these conspiracy truthers are calling some devil thing. Moloch is most likely the sacrificial rite of burning. So you see, these people are always lying, or they're just not being honest about how they're promoting for essentially a monetary gain, I think, because you can't honestly look at these texts and be such an expert on them unless you have severe indoctrination, which I know a lot of people will also, if they're really fanatic about their beliefs, will go into studying it in the Hebrew. Of course, the neural pathways in your neurotransmitters and how everything's firing, it's not going to register correctly. So, yeah, it's one of those things where these truthers want to say this and that. There will be a division in, well, Jesus this and that, pro and con of Israel. It doesn't matter. Because when your foundations, and this would include Islam, I know that they have their fail-safe and their protocols of the cult where they'll say, well, this was the true iteration. But the foundations of it all being the Torah and the Tanakh, which is, most of the books could be found of the Old Testament. This is clearly a story of a perspective of peoples who have, like such as Abraham, who was a slave in Ur today, he was an Urite slave. You see, there's so much that people don't understand. They don't understand that Satan's not real. He's not even in the Bible. Like how people understand it to be is a complete fabrication from those such as like the Canterbury Monastery Fathers, Jerome. They were tying this Isaiah quote to this, which is supposed to be, depending on who you ask for interpretation, could be a sarcastic reference to an arrogant Babylonian king, or perhaps such as Mara Biblino, as I said previously, talking about the Lucifer due to Deutero-Isaiah's creation time period and the surrounding events. That would be Xerxes, like from 300. But Satan just means adversary or opposition. In the actual text, it's used several times for heroes such as David. It's usually an office that a man has taken within the actual, text of it. A man has been Satan, and an angel has been Satan, depending on certain interpretations and those who are willing to, not let dogma carry them. There's clearly one of the Elohim, if not Yahweh's, being a Satan in cases. It just means that you're in opposition to, or something's in opposition to you as an adversarial role. Now, with the Job's Ha-Satan, yeah, that's the office of being a Satani. You start looking into like the collaborative mythology surrounding like the Jewish lore, like Samael. He's a devil, a prosecutor. What do you think of? Slander, accuser, adversary, a role of being a tempter. It's these things. But the office clearly seems to be something akin to a lawyer-like thing. The office of being the Satan in this particular whatever context. But no, the Elohim Council is clearly, there's more than one. I mean, there's even in the, like I said, the Bible mentions all of this. Like Shamash is mentioned, Astarte, of course the Baal, of course Yahweh, Asherah. There's elements of it still around. I mean, Asherah was a consort of, I think it was El or Baal, one of the two, if not. A lot of these things mix, and then it became Yahweh's consort, as you can see in some of these old, artifacts they've found and dated from a long time ago that says Yahweh and his Asherah. It's like he had a consort because he was developed out of Baal and El. And of course, when you have all of these influences of the where you were originated from Canaan, and furthermore, when you have Babylon where you were enslaved, these civilizations were pretty similar, and their mythologies directly go back to Sumer. And of course, the names in comparative mythologies, you can say, Astarte, Ashtaroth, is Inanna Ashtar, or Easter, the transgender lunar goddess. But yeah, this is all important because this stuff is documented, and I can present it to any of you, or at least guide you to the information. But it's easy to find with these. Oh, the lights just went out. Spot off. Just be vigilant with the people you follow if you're looking for truth, because you're not going to find it from most of these people because they're not in it for that, and they're probably controlled from the get-go. Peace out.